This meeting is now being recorded.
Welcome, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful Monday, the week of Veterans Day. For all the veterans that are in the room, thank you for your service. Appreciate it. We start out with introductions with APS. We'll go to my right with Mr. Cullum.
Chuck Cullum, Central Arizona Project.
Mark Seaman, City of Buckeye.
Ron Whitler, City of Buckeye.
Trevor Bajori with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality.
Zachary Richards, Arizona Department of Water Resources.
Jerry Walker, ADWR as well.
Brian Payne, Arizona Municipal Water Users Association.
Jim Cars, Central Water. Kyle Evans, Buckeye Water Conservation.
Terry Swinsky, Goodwood, Street.
Scott Miller, APS.
Hey. Tony DeMarco, Central Arizona Project.
Orestes Morphine, Central Arizona.
Mike Wong with CH2
And Lee Walker with the Salt River Project.
Jennifer Marcus here,
Wade Noble and whoever set up the table today, I appreciate the side you put me on.
Chuck Cullum, damn glad to be here.
I like your haircut, Wade. Thank you. Yours is getting better.
So with that, we'll start in with our presentations.
I'm going to give you the clicker here. Sorry.
So Mr. Cullen is going to give us an update on what's going on down in the Yuma area. And Wade will probably assist.
Yes, assist. That's a great way of putting it.
But, first, I appreciate the opportunity. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Chuck Cullum. I'm the Colorado River Programs Manager for Central Arizona Project. And since the early 2000s, CAP, in collaboration with local, state, and interstate partners, have worked to conduct investigations, pilot studies, pilot projects with two specific goals in mind in the Yuma area. One is to assist the United States to find the start button for the Yuma desalting plant. We found it once, and it worked for a year.
Now it's eluded you?
And now they've hidden it again. In all seriousness, we've been working particularly through the recent effort led by the Department of Water Resources and the Bureau of Reclamation to study ways to reduce losses in the Yuma area that contribute to declines in Lake Mead, as well as opportunities to add information to this process and other augmentation investigations to see if there are ways to take advantage of currently unused nuisance water in the Yuma area. And what this investigation, what this presentation is about, is providing an update on those efforts, and really is, in our minds, the transfer of information to where we think it's perhaps most useful is in this desal committee, and to provide support to the Governor's Water Augmentation Council. That's a long way to say that this is not a CAP proposal. This is information that CAP has funded and compiled for this group and the Governor's Water Augmentation Council to consider as we collectively explore opportunities for new water supplies and water efficiencies based on brackish water.
Thank you.
So, again, just a summary, we're focusing on providing new information in support of the state-led effort. It was in large measure facilitated by the previous effort led by the state and reclamation to reduce losses in Lake Mead. Improving the efficiency, reducing losses will have a direct impact on improving the risk of normal supplies, that is, reducing the risk of shortage going forward, as well as the recognition that the only path forward for these types of concepts must include cooperation with and through the local interests and reclamation, which I think has been a large measure of this committee's discussion. So we'll cut to the punchline. What we focused on was identifying the range of opportunities to develop brackish groundwater from beneath the Yuma Mesa region, colloquially known as the mound, the brackish groundwater mound beneath Yuma Mesa, as a new water supply resource through desalination. There were two investigation components. One was assessing the magnitude of the resource through groundwater modeling. That was a study that was completed through a contract with Black & Veatch. And then we engaged CH2M to explore the cost framework for an extraction well field conveyance to the Yuma desalting plant footprint and the desalinization process conceptual design, so we could put a cost framework around what that concept might yield. And putting the two together, which I'm reporting today, the groundwater model suggests a sustainable yield of about 50,000 acre-feet per year. That has an important assumption about continued agricultural practices both on Yuma Mesa and in the vicinity. That's an important contributor to the brackish groundwater mound. The extraction, treatment, and delivery of the product water yields a cost of about $550 per acre foot. That's the all-in project cost. And in conducting the study, there's a significant opportunity for local delivery, which would offset Colorado River uses, which would make that offsetting use available for exchange upstream. So it has the opportunity for a local supply as well as an exchange supply upstream, all within Arizona. So here's a map of the study area. Whoops, I hit the wrong button. There we go. So there's a pointer?
It should be in the middle.
Okay. So this is a groundwater elevation map, and this is essentially the mound of groundwater in the Yuma area. This is Yuma Mesa Irrigation and Drainage District, Yuma Valley. This is North Gila, South Gila, Bard, Unit B here, and then this is the 242 well field. So this is a significant feature that we'll be talking about as we go forward. This is the Algodones Fault. It is a significant hydrogeologic structure that controls the groundwater flow in the area, and is one of the reasons the mound is where it is. You can see that the mound is basically truncated or emanates from this structure. So groundwater that is trying to migrate south impacts this flow barrier and builds up before it then, if we think of it in surface water terms, spills over and continues to flow south.
How high does it have to be to spill over, Chuck?
I can't read.
Surface level?
I think the depth of groundwater here is about 100 feet.
Oh.
So it has to get up that high to then contribute. And it really It just slows the migration. It doesn't block it, but that's why the mound backs up behind it, is because you have relatively high flux, high flow north and east of the barrier, and when you hit the barrier, it slows down before it can actually transmit. I think the technical term would be an aquitard, but that's reaching way back in graduate school. So a little background on the mound. It's the high groundwater resource beneath Yuma Mesa. It's been well understood since the early 2000s. It contributes to high groundwater elevations both in the vicinity of Yuma Mesa and in the Yuma Valley. Its location and extent is in large measure governed by the aquifer parameters and that structural control we just talked about. The groundwater from the vicinity of the mound was tested as part of the pilot operation of the Yuma desalting plant. There was a study prepared by CH in 2013 that explored the water different ways to treat that brackish groundwater, and then the resource was identified as part of the early 2007 water augmentation study by CH and by Black and Veatch in 2014. So it's been studied pretty extensively. The USGS did a groundwater model in 2005, I believe. So it's not a new thing that we stumbled upon. So here is some key points. Morelos Dam is at 112 feet elevation. Groundwater in that vicinity is about 10 to 12 feet. Here's the detail. Thank you. At Yuma Mesa, beneath the elevation of the water surface is 213 feet, and that's about 40 feet below ground surface. So you can see that it is indeed a mound. Groundwater flows off of it to Yuma Valley and then south. Okay? So in the groundwater model, the assignment for Black and Veatch was to explore what the sustainable yield of an extraction well field might look like to balance the flow in the mound. They used the USGS model and report from 2006 as a basis. In that report, the USGS estimated that the mound volume is 600,000 acre-feet. When Black and Veatch did their study, they estimated 30 to 40 extraction wells with an average extraction rate of 1,000 to 1,100 gallons per minute, and their model showed that the sustainable yield for that pumping regime was about 50,000 acre-feet. And then, again, CH took that information, refined it through discussions with Reclamation and other folks, and determined that well yields in the Black and Veatch study were conservatively estimated, that it's a reasonable expectation are wells generating 2,000 gallons per minute, so that reduced the amount of extraction wells, and they located a conceptual well field and then conveyance to develop costs. So the transient model is the basis for the determination that 50,000 acre-feet is a sustainable yield number. This is the elevation contours in the transient case. You can see that there is still a significant mound beneath Yuma Mesa. The extraction well field in this case was aligned to the southeast of the mound. The goal was to extract as much of that mound water as possible without disrupting groundwater flow paths. and the model shows that was achieved in this iteration. So when we engaged with CH, we wanted them to look at different well field configurations with updated local information to refine the pumping yield and capacity, still locating those that conceptual extraction well field adjacent to the mound. Looked at different rights of way to convey that water from the mound to the Yuma desalting plant site, and then develop an optimal treatment strategy or treatment train at the plant based on the information from the previous study in 2011, and using new water quality information from 2 reclamation drainage wells. So there are 2 well field options, one adjacent to the airport. Where do you live, Wade?
Well, dropping the map.
Because we thought about, in the conceptual design how to manage noise abatement for the wells, but if it's next to your house, maybe that can be a cost saving.
I'll do some testing.
So there's one well field adjacent to the airport north of the mound, and a second option that brackets the mound, that is wells on both sides. And then 3 conveyance options. One is following the Yuma Mesa conduit, which is an existing facility that reclamation operates to take water from the drainage water from the Yuma Mesa area and take it up to the main outlet drain extension, the Colorado River, or potentially to the Yuma desalting plant. The open country alignment is, as described, is a shortcut through Yuma Valley, and the East Main Canal would be a longer alignment that follows the East Main, which is also a reclamation facility.
What's the difference in length?
We'll get to that, but thanks.
I figured you were.
And then I don't remember. I'm going to have to look at the slide. The East Main Canal is the longest route, and I believe the open country is the shortest. And you'll see why we came up with 3 conveyance options when you see the map in a second. And then treatment, we looked at leveraging as much of the existing Yuma desalting plant infrastructure, but we also recognize that a number of the treatment processes would need to be optimized or updated. So here's the well field option. Here are the well field options. Here's option 1, which is adjacent to the Yuma International Airport. Option 2, which is bracketing the apex of the mound. The well locations are the dots. I think they're on quarter-mile spacing, and they all manifold into a conveyance into the Yuma desalting plant. Here are the 3 conveyance options. Here's the open country approach. We would be buying a lot of lettuce field right away to get to the plant. This is the Yuma Mesa conduit option. Our initial thought, having toured down there many times, was that the conduit was a logical approach. What we didn't know was that reclamation has allowed significant encroachment on the conduit right of way. It goes under people's backyards and through some subdivisions, so we'd be buying some pools and dog houses and stuff to get for construction right away. And then the third route is the East Main Canal, which, while the longest approach, has the cleanest constructability, if you want to use that term. It's the widest right-of-way that Reclamation has. It's already a utility right-of-way. Anyway, so...
What's the diameter of the pipe?
The conduit's 48-inch once you get here. It's in a variety of repair because Reclamation has a hard time getting in to conduct maintenance in this reach.
I was asking what would we be required to pump 50,000 acre feet a year?
Do you know?
48, 54.
I think we looked at a range, so I think it was either 38 or 42, if I recall.
Yeah. It's not ginormous. So here's the existing treatment train for YDP. You guys want to go through all this? Okay. So we want to utilize the existing facilities and maintain the ability of the existing plant to meet its design objective, which is to treat main outlet drain extension water. So this would be a facility within a facility, and we want to optimize capital and annual O&M costs. So what we do is, here's the new treatment train. This is existing, and then the red line is how we sort of parachute into under the roof of YDP. So we have our new extraction well field. We boost it coming in. We is that microfiltration? No, here's microfiltration.
Just granular.
Yeah. So we're just cleaning the junk. We're balancing it. Then we run microfiltration, and then we're going to balance into the forebay and take it to our treatment in the membranes, balance it on the back end, and then exchange it into the Colorado River or with a local water user. And the concentrate is going to go into the bypass train to Mexico. Whoop. So here's the cost summary. This is the annual wet water yield. So these are the three alternatives, the three alignment alternatives. The well field construction didn't really generate much difference between the two well fields. It's the same number of wells. You have a little difference in manifold, but not much. Construction costs are for the conduit, we inflated because of the constructability issues in people's backyards. Open country, it's shorter, but we don't have right-of-way information, so that number could go up as soon as we talk to lettuce farmers about accessing through their fields in the winter. And then the East Main is probably the strongest estimate, meaning that we have confidence around it. That's about $157 million. The annual O&M for the wells and the conveyance. This is the all-in O&M. Yeah, so it includes the operation. So when we look at the construction portion of the costs for the 30-year life cycle, you can see that the construction costs aren't that different on a unit basis. We assume the same treatment process generally coming in. So the net out is all in 30 years. Repayment, annual operation is, we're saying, about $550 per acre foot. So just to put a bow around it, there's a significant brackish groundwater resource under Yuma Mesa. Modeling suggests it can yield, on a sustained basis, 50,000 acre feet. The all-in cost for delivery either locally or to an exchange partner is $550 an acre foot. Potential next steps to consider first are outreach, sharing the results of this investigation, getting input. We have had discussions with the Department of Water Resources, the Bureau of Reclamation, the representative of the local stakeholders. I wonder who that is.
When you think of local stakeholders, Chuck, it might be best to think of wooden stakes.
Well, I appreciate that we've, in this season of Halloween, but we think that the outreach should expand and consistent with this group's discussions, have direct conversations with local interests to see how they feel about it, whether this is worth exploring as a resource to benefit Arizona and how we might proceed. And then explore funding options. How would the state or interested parties pay for the development of this resource? As far as technical next steps, the work from CH2M identified the need for additional aquifer testing and water quality information to better inform preliminary design, and then pilot testing with a phase 1 test of exploring the difference in some pre-treatment options, and then phase 2 would be sort of skid testing for to better understand how different RO units would perform with the local water. Thank you.
Interesting. What's the length of time on the tests, phase 1, phase 2? What do you think this is, 6 months, 3 months, a year?
I think if you combined aquifer testing with phase 1, you're looking at about a 6-month adventure. Because we would want to. Well, I think from a technical perspective, we really do need some real-world information that would guide the extraction well design and the water chemistry that we can expect in the coming to the plant. Right now, we're using surrogate information from adjacent wells, but not the location where we would actually be developing the brackish groundwater resource.
Are there no wells there?
Not that had the data that we were looking for. Reclamation has the wells on the western side of the mesa drainage wells, and it may be the similar chemistry. We just don't know.
And what kind of money are we talking about for those 3 steps there, Chuck?
We haven't costed those out.
Any kind of guess?
A good aquifer.
million?
Yeah, I'm thinking 1 to 2. Just
That would be
a few.
1 to 3.
Okay. Chuck, can I ask you, the concentrated brine goes to Mexico. What happens with it there? So this is a disposal option, or are they using it for some beneficial purpose?
It goes to the Ciénaga de Santa Clara, which is artificial, a man-made wetland that currently receives drainage water to the tune of about 2,600 parts per million salinity. So we need to do some mixing analysis, but in the pilot operation of the Yuma desalting plant in 2010-2011, the plant operated at 1/3 capacity and delivered the brine stream to the Ciénaga, and the Ciénaga demonstrated that it is pretty resilient to changes in salinity within a range, and I think, based on that experience, that there's room to put this brine into the mode and avoid significant impacts to that resource. More work would have to be done, and there would have to be important work with Mexico to collaborate on the binational approach to this.
Great, thank you.
I actually had a follow-up question to that. I know at one point, it might have been in this committee, there was talk of treating the drainage water that was going to the bypass and maybe using that as a resource. Is that something that you looked at all as part of this, or why was that kept separate from this concept here?
From CWCD's perspective, the United States has the obligation to operate the plant for the purposes, and to be precise, for the purposes identified in Title I of the Salinity Control Act, which is to replace the water lost to Arizona from the delivery of drainage water to Mexico. So CWCD believes that we should not step into the shoes of the United States when they have an existing obligation.
Or else you assume it.
That's exactly right. It is an identified concept by this committee, but we weren't studying that. We think that's the province of the United States. And the work from the operation of the plant, the human desalting plant by the United States, is supposed to protect Lake Mead.
Right.
This water supply could be used as a new resource for Arizona.
Could you explain to me why that couldn't be used for exchanges, if there was some sort of operating agreement between the United States and, private parties?
Sure. So from my perspective, from CWCD's perspective, that would represent, unless that supply is made up, that would represent a loss to Arizona. Because right now, even though the delivery of the mode water to Mexico is not a treaty delivery, the United States is obligated to treat it as a return flow for Arizona.
Okay.
And if it were then exchanged, or delivered to use, it would no longer be a return flow.
Chuck, the configuration of the extraction well fields, how are those two options put together? What's benefits or strengths of one or the other?
They were, I think, on a conference call, webinar, so they weren't particularly rigorous in how they were identified. One of the things we need to do is to rerun the model with the new extraction well locations to optimize the location to answer that question.
I think the north well field was based on what Black and Beach had put together. When we put the second well field together with set brackets to mount, we might get a little bit better extraction by going on both sides of the mountain. We set those wells along, I think there's existing canals.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, so that's why it's shaped that way and why it's diagonal. I mean, part of it's, because it's next to the airport, but I think the other part of it, we're trying to put it in places where we thought it'd be constructed.
Right, because these are along existing farm roads.
I think for option one, majority of those wells were located there based on the assumption that the right-of-way would be easier.
Yeah.
So it was not an issue if it were adjacent to the airbase.
But again, certainly this is concept, right? So there's, I don't think there's a strong tie to think of.
What kind of population density is in those areas? Any residents down there?
So Bob asked the population density or their residents in here. You can see some. Certainly it's not as dense as this. I think once you get over here near the Marine Air Station and International Airport, you might have more intersection with people.
Neither one of those has a population density issue.
You talked about noise abatement. I just didn't know if that was because there was a lot of houses.
That'll depend on if you're using
future
diesel.
growth. Yeah, if you're using diesel pumps, that might be pretty noisy.
Yes.
Yeah, I got a question. How much water is being moved there right now? How much of the brine water is being removed right now?
I'll have to look at I don't have it off the top of my head. It's less than 100. It's not that much. The drainage wells that reclamation operates are in this vicinity, right here. I can get that information.
How much water is being used right now for agricultural for being pumped out from the field? What's the delivery there right now?
In the Yuma area, it's predominant. It's almost entirely surface water, Colorado River water, and it's to the tune of just under 1 million acre-feet. Wade? Yeah.
Yeah, they have access to better water than Buckeye.
Used to solar project to go in.
Chuck, I won't say anything about that.
Smart.
Was any consideration given as to the location of the two well fields as to the impact on drainage or to having an effect of drainage?
We weren't focused on reducing the impact on the drainage on this side, which is where the drainage problem is. We were focused on just taking the top out of the mound, if you will. I think if we were to optimize the well field, the well field locations for dual benefit, that is to reduce groundwater elevations in the Yuma Valley and to get the mound, to take water from the mound, we would reconfigure more on this side. But we haven't done that analysis. We can pull it from the model, but we didn't do it in the design.
And when we talk about the sustainability of it, what's the projection here?
It's based on that uses today persist for the life cycle of the model, which I think was run out to 50 years.
But it was, the one slide gave you the impression that everything stays status quo. This is forever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the transient case, yeah.
But if agriculture changes over the course of time?
Yeah, so what you would expect and what we would evaluate or analyze is how much of that 600,000 acre-foot mound gets depleted as you change agricultural practices. And we could run some scenarios to explore that if that's what folks needed to understand on what sustainability means under different futures for, if you say that Yuma Mesa is, half the size it is today from an agricultural perspective, 25 years from now, what does that do to the resource? We can do that analysis.
I think we'll have to at some point, Chuck, because whether you're an investor or an environmental person or whoever, you're going to want to know what was the basis of the longevity of this project, right? Tell me that's in its first 30 years, but there's no
look at varying urbanization strategies. And
yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, Bob. Wade, is the well field configuration having a dual benefit to Yuma Valley? Is that something that would be of interest to explore further?
what graduate degree do you have? I'm giving you hints.
And I just want to hear you say yes, Wade, in front of all these people.
What is there a projected depletion rate on this mound? This model?
It stabilizes about 30 feet lower than it is today. That's where the transient case gets to.
30 feet lower than it is today is where we expect it to stabilize,
right,
and be sustainable almost permanently.
Yep.
Depending, of course, upon the agricultural use on the mesa.
Yeah. That's correct. So what I hear from you and Bob is, looking at different futures and having a better understanding of how different agricultural practices impact and how different well locations impact the actual mound itself.
What quantity of water is estimated in that 30 feet?
I'll have to go look. I don't know.
That's something we need to know.
Say that. No.
And if the extraction process were to affect the groundwater levels to the west, does that mean that there could be a reduction in the drainage well operation in the Yuma Valley?
It could be. I mean, we could focus on, achieving a savings that way.
What is one of the irrigation districts pays for those drainage wells?
Well, they're not really a district.
Somebody pays.
Yuma County Water Users has that well built.
Yep.
Reclamation has some of it.
No.
And the toe of the mesa is where the most difficult problems are.
Yeah. Yep. And that's where we would, to generate a dual benefit, that's where we would either upsize existing wells or punch new wells in there.
Is there any difference in water quality across that?
That's what we need to find out. We don't know.
I mean, they're pumping wells now.
Yeah.
Sample that one.
Yeah, and the samples we have are from the toe of the mesa, and that's. There's already information that suggests there's some change in water chemistry as it flows through, percolates down from what it is at the surface. We just don't know how it changes laterally. Got a good idea vertically.
Yeah.
It seems like a critical concern would be the depletion rate and stabilizing that, and any impact upon the groundwater levels on the west side. Those factors, while, shall we say, not necessarily being the telling factors, they can have an impact on the decisions being made by those in the area.
Well, if it would help the conversation, we are willing to go back to our smart people consultant folk and answer as many of these questions as we can end of January.
Would it help the conversation? Yes, but it's not like we're moving the ball a whole lot, okay? So it would help the conversation.
Well, and my thinking, Wade, I appreciate that. My thinking is that there's what we had talked about previously was the conduct of a discussion with local interest and just the process to make that decision, set up a meeting. It's hard to imagine that happens before the end of January, just given schedules and holidays. But consultants don't have those constraints.
There's no tomorrow.
So, if it's helpful.
It's not going to hurt. The more questions we have answered, I mean, because one of the things that I would think we would need to put together, if I'm going to go down and talk with Wade and whoever you bring, is a list of potential benefits and impacts for the area, right? I mean, and being totally transparent and honest about what are the potential negative or potential impacts. And then also trying to understand if there's anything that the locals can identify that they would want or need from a project like this.
Yes, we don't want to lead the committee along saying there is some glimmer.
No.
But what we're saying is, so far, the way we have approached this as a committee, we won't put other initials there, but as we approached this as a committee, it's been, what water can we get out of there?
Right.
That doesn't play real well at the local level.
Sure. No, it makes a lot of sense.
If there's not some beneficial impact from the process, or if there's not some beneficial impact or effect from doing this, then we're going to have a hard time convincing the locals that they want to be involved in it.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense, Wade. So if it's the desire of the committee, we will take on answering the questions that were posed today and working on the list of potential benefits and a straight-up list of potential impacts, and that will provide to Bob and folks who go down and talk to people what the landscape in this concept can look like.
Wait, I'd like to talk to you some right timing and approach, and how do we want to attack this, and if you and I just need to get together first and brainstorm about it, or with Tom, and just kind of kick some things around, and who are the people we need to reach out to.
Let's wrap it around something else in the next few weeks.
Okay. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities in the next few weeks, I think. Whether we want
I'm not going to follow that up.
There aren't any secrets worth knowing.
We don't want you to have to come in for a special.
All right. Well, we'll take that on and keep you apprised of our progress.
Thanks, John. We appreciate the work CAWC has done so far. I think we are making some headway, at least identifying things. The biggest hurdle that we have that we knew going in was just the local area interest, and if we can identify something that benefits the local area folks in Yuma, I don't see
Agreed.
it moving very far.
Right. So that y'all are aware.
That's Louisiana.
And it happens every now and then. We'll follow up with reclamation of Yuma area office folks and probably Tom Davis and some other people, just get some of their ideas.
Are there any from regulatory, PWR, BOR, DEQ, big hurdles that anybody sees in accomplishing this? I wouldn't want to move forward and go, potentially be tar and feathered in Yuma if, somebody said, well, you couldn't do this anyway, even if you wanted.
Probably love APS.
Wow. It's a love-hate thing. I understand.
But Yuma's love is a short list.
Yeah. But at least we're sometimes on the love list.
I'm still trying to get your Christmas card list.
Really? That's what you want? I can solve that.
From DWR's perspective, this, as Chuck said, has been discussed in the bypass flows work group. It has had various forms, various locations of where water comes from and where it goes to. But under this current proposal, and I know that he presented it to Denise and our CRM group, and so there's, in its current form, it is not an issue to ADWR.
Okay. Trevor, do you see anything?
Ultimately we would regulate the disposal of the water if it's going to Mexico. I don't see that as being a problem. It's where it went before. Our regulations simply don't apply there. I don't know what level of engineering review there might be on the new train at the desalination plant, but we should talk about, but I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be approved.
The pipeline construction would probably be another one. I don't know what kind of hurdles we would have to get that many months, but
yeah.
So no showstoppers.
As long as it doesn't change.
Well,
I'm holding that card.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no.
Because it doesn't need to change very much in that area for
for
things to be triggered.
Exactly. No, and I really appreciated the time that the department gave us to talk about it. So, and your inputs helped it change in a helpful way. So, appreciate that.
Are there any other questions?
I've got a comment. So I know we talked about a lot of the stakeholder issues, the permitting issues. One thing that Chuck talked about was the piloting. And the reason that there's that first phase of piloting to look at different features is because there's a significant capital investment in it. And so there's enough uncertainty about what happens to the water between when it's extracted from the pipe and when it gets to the plant to have that pretreatment take out metal that on the way.
Yeah,
so that's the main reason.
Yep.
It might have been covered in the meeting before, but if we can do that piloting, we could hone in on what the cost really is going to be for that pretreatment. So it could be on the end that you saw on the table, or there could be some savings if we could avoid some of that.
I don't see any rigs being set up until we get the local interest buy-in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would hate to be that well driller. Any other questions or comments? All right.
Thanks,
Chuck.
You bet.
So we have discussed previously the Winslow Loop area, and Zach and Jerry are going to update us on the latest information we have regarding that area of the state. So, Zach?
So AWR staff was asked to do some research by the committee on the Winslow Loop area, anything regarding the brackish groundwater supply, if there's any projects that were looked at in the past in recent studies. Going into this, I want to reiterate, similarly to Chuck, that we are not for or against any particular project presented in this presentation. We're just presenting information to the committee.
Thank you.
So a bit of a background. When this committee first got started, the Montgomery and Associates report prepared for Central Arizona Water Conservation District. They allowed us to comb through all these brackish groundwater projects that were proposed in this study. The Winslow Loop area had a small section that detailed what it might look like if brackish groundwater was to be accessed for a project and desalinated for local use. The end user could be the Native American community on the Navajo Reservation, or perhaps Winslow. 11,600 acre feet per year for 60 years was what they offered as an alternative source of water, as opposed to using Colorado River water from Lake Powell. The TDS of the water in the area in this report noted 1,000 to 5,000 milligrams per liter. The cost, $600 to $1,200 per acre foot, with a 30-year project life to treat that water and distribute it. There could be water settlement implications, either resolving or maybe complicating. Unresolved claims of Federal Reserve rights to the groundwater itself, things to be considered if a project like this was to be put into play. Off of this, our legal team gave us this draft to comb through from the Navajo Nation. We confirmed that this was something that was proposed to resolve. So.
And I was supposed to, and I do not know.
Oh, okay.
But these were the projects that were proposed as alternatives to a Lake Powell pipeline in the failed.
Yes, that's.
All right.
Yes, I've seen that. I can confirm.
So I won't go into detail about a whole lot of these projects here, but just so you know, the red lines are pipelines. And this paper served as a data jumping point for the next report, which I will talk about in more detail. This report here is in 2011. This one here is put out to the public in March 2015. This is a report or appraisal study done by the Bureau of Reclamation for the Navajo Nation in order to better inform the Navajo Nation of how to meet water demands for the study area, which is 14 chapters in the lower Navajo Reservation. So it extends from the eastern portion of the reservation in the Loop chapter. Loop chapter over here in the west, and the Little Colorado River goes through Loop and through Bird Springs. Over to the east here, just on the other side of the Fulton Reservation, in the Ganado chapter, and there's projects being proposed all throughout this area in the appraisal study to meet the demands of 2060. The aquifers in this area, there's plenty of them, and it's kind of a complicated map. Here's the study area here in these diagonal lines. So there's plenty of aquifers, but the one we want to focus on here is the much larger aquifer, which is the sea aquifer, the Coconino aquifer, which extends all the way up into the mid-portion of Utah and the Colorado and New Mexico. The sea aquifer contains within it all kinds of different levels of TDS, extending up from 0 to 500 TDS to over 10,000, and you can see here in these two maps done by Edwin McGavick of the Montgomery Associates when he was working for them. The TDS, where the halite salt bed is, near Holbrook, looking at 68,000 and 64,000 TDS, which is twice as salty as seawater. So the halite bed here, which you see all these rings, it gets much thicker towards the center. But as groundwater passes through the halite salt bed, the water becomes saltier and extends all the way out to the city. So it's pretty massive. And here's, just to point out, here's Winslow and Loop, so they're just on the edge of 1,000 and 2,000 TDS. For the location issues and the end user, as I said earlier, one of the end users could be the Navajo people themselves, and that was the intention here in this report. It addresses the demand of 3,833 acre-feet per year in 2060. Assumed 1.2% annual population growth with 100 gallons per capita per day. The households without access to public water systems was the focus of the end user. And in this map here, you can see all these red dots representing the households that do not have access to a public water system. In the chapters that I'll be discussing in one of the alternative projects, there's 4 of them that will either be receiving this water supply or providing to each other. The White Cone chapter, and here in this small section just below the Hopi Reservation, there's about 40% without access to a public water system. Indian Wells, 85%, which is just below White Cone. Ganado over here to the east, 5%, and Lower Greasewood at 31%.
So does that mean the water is not coming to their house?
That's correct.
Okay. Just want to clarify that they are within, 50 feet of a well and they have to still fill barrels, but it's not in their house.
The situation is actually a lot more dire than I had even known, which I'll get to later. Here's the population projections in the table for all going out to 2060 that they figured into their calculations. The local issues, here's where the water hauling was in a little more depth. Families which haul water for domestic purposes spend the equivalent of $42,000 per acre foot, compared with your suburban raised family of $600 per acre foot for water use. The average distance to a well or water source for these folks is roughly about 10 miles one way to get to that water source. And transportation cost to the user is $205 per 1,000 gallons. For most of these people that do haul water, the average daily use is 10 gallons per capita per day, which is the minimal survival rate for the average person. Current water systems that do not meet the residential demands currently. So the public water systems can meet 829 acre-feet per year, but there's 1,466 acre-feet per year that need to be met. Currently, there's pumping in the Lower Greasewood chapter from the Pueblo, Colorado Wash, which is in a alluvial aquifer, and it is not sustainable. It's withdrawing more water than can be replenished in that aquifer. So the alternative projects to meet the demands of 2060, there's a few of them. I just want to note here that the brackish groundwater, which is a deeply drilled well to 3,000 feet deep, was eliminated from this study due to the high cost of the construction to treat 5,000 and 2,000 parts per million TDS, very high salinity. So that was not considered. There were 4 other ones. Alternative 1 was just no action at all. What would happen if that were the case? Alternative 2, a 50-50 split between the sea aquifer and the alluvial groundwater. Alternative 3 was a 60-40 split between the sea aquifer and alluvial groundwater. And then finally, alternative 4 is what I want to narrow in on, because that dealt with one particular brackish groundwater well that would be located in the Bird Springs chapter. Just so you know what I'm talking about, I'm going to bring up the map real quick. So the Loop chapter is over here, and they have proposed wells going in the south side of the Loop chapter with a pipeline that comes up into Bird Springs, and there's a well here to tap into Bird Springs where the brackish groundwater is located. They use booster pumps to funnel that water into Dilcon, and that is transferred up to the White Cone, White Cone, and then the Indian Wells chapter. So they're connecting the pipe from the existing infrastructure in Loop and Bird Springs and taking it out east towards these remote chapters where there's people who are trying to get access to the public water supply system, and they have these pipes that go down off of the existing infrastructure into these water points, which are what these boxes represent. Over here to the east, in the Ganado chapter, there's a few well fields out here. They want to drop a few wells being proposed in the red markers. And then there's some construction that's currently going on to connect to this purple line here, to connect the existing infrastructure in the Lower Greasewood chapter where the alluvial aquifer is, in this area, where all these clusters of wells are, and bringing that water to connect to Indian Wells and the Whitecomb. Any questions about that?
So all that pipe and infrastructure exists right now?
All the black lines here that you see, oops, let's point out. All these black lines here, this is all existing. Okay, but this purple line here, this is under construction currently, as well as this one over here, and all these red lines here is what's being proposed, and there's a few red wells that are being proposed in the Ganado chapter.
Okay.
And the yellow currently exists?
This is green, and this is rural water extension. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see the colors, but...
So those exist?
These are being proposed.
Okay.
Rural water extension from the existing infrastructure to water points. This is trying to bring water to folks that live in the remote areas of the chapters. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you'll see exactly how much that costs in a second.
Long rounds of skinny pipe.
Yeah. So the shallow brackish groundwater is 300 feet below ground surface. It sits near the Little Colorado River. Again, it's a 60-40 split. So the water coming from Loop and the Bird Springs chapters is 60% of the water produced for Whitecomb and Indian Wells. The 40% of that water will be coming from the Ganado chapter and the illegal supply in the Lower Greasewood chapter. Martin put together this awesome map, and he's probably spent more time on it than he really cared to, but I had a lot of fun with it. So this background map here that you see is all the blues. This is from Deborah Daniels, from that report that we looked at a year ago now, because the committee got started, and that was one of the first things that we looked at. So Martin had actually, scanned it into the system?
It's not available digitally.
So it was an old-style cartography project where it didn't have GIS to work with, I think, from what I understand, and the only version we had was paper. So we geo-referenced it. So it's not a beautiful map to look at, and I apologize if it's a little difficult to read.
The crease mark.
But the solid colors underneath are from the geo-reference map. And then the blue, thin spider web of lines in the middle are those existing and proposed pipelines that Zach just showed you on top of the TDS map. So the TDS is the color in the background, and the thin blue line is the proposed and existing pipelines.
So just to clarify, this big red blob here was drawn in accordance with the McGavick TDS map that was shown earlier. So I wanted to show where that blob was on here, and the halite salt beds are down here near Holbrook in the lower right-hand corner, and the groundwater flow is coming this way up towards Tuba City, towards the northwest. This is where the highest TDS is in that area.
So what's the TDS in the gray area where Red Gap Ranch is?
So this here is in the lower end of about 0 to 500, I want to say.
Yeah. On that last map.
Go back to McGavick.
So I have to say that I asked them to put all of these component parts together because we talk about them and look at each of the maps separately, but I had never seen any of them overlain.
That was a good idea. Thank you.
It took them a while. But I think it's a great way to look at it because it puts the TDS in perspective with where the proposed pipelines are and that sort of thing.
So what does the hatching mean?
I'd have to look at the actual legend from the original map, but it has to do with depth to the measured TDS. So, like a solid would mean shallower to the measured TDS, and hatching would mean a deeper measurement of that given TDS. I can give you those exact measurements on the original file. I don't know. Do you have that?
But the hatching suggests deeper.
I can't remember if it's shallower.
Either deeper or shallower.
Yeah. We got a 50-50 chance here.
But I can't answer that question right now.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the related.
Yeah.
And then the well fields that they're tapping into are in these green circular areas here. Right. As far as the storage capacity goes of the sea aquifer, there's a pretty large range, but from past studies, the USGS had 300 million acre-feet. AWR stated 413 million acre-feet in the Water Atlas. The estimated amount of the resource in just the 14 chapters alone is 40 to 50 million acre-feet. There were two studies that were done in 2006 2005 about the impact that this would have from if you withdraw that water from the area. In the Black Mesa environmental impact statement, if you were to withdraw 11,600 acre-feet per year for 60 years, you'd have a decline of 400 feet in Ganado chapter and 50 feet in Emu Loop chapter. With the USGS study, they were looking at how it would impact the surface river systems. So the lower Clear Creek, if you were to withdraw, say, 6,500 acre-feet per year over a 51-year period, followed by a 50-year period of no withdrawal, there'd be a decrease of about 0.4 cubic feet per second for that creek. So it was a much larger amount, the 11,500 feet per year. Obviously, you get less of a, or more of a cubic feet per second decline. Land availability and cost, this was a tricky one for us. In fact, we're not even sure what the cost of the land would be if it was to be leased for a project of this type. But what we can say is that land cannot be acquired from the Navajo Nation without congressional action, and projects built on Navajo land require some sort of lease, permit, right-of-way, or other agreement. These agreements may be subject to renewal, and Martin discovered a regulatory change in 2015 for approval of right-of-way infrastructure like pipelines has been expedited. A project benefiting the tribe may not require consideration. But if it does not benefit the tribe, from what we heard from one of our contacts, it would not likely be approved. So if we were to take, a supply like we had thought from Loop and then bring it down to Winslow, it's probably not going to happen.
Well, you'd probably need to package a broader range of benefits, right? So if you were just exporting the water from Yuma from Navajo to Loop without local benefit, you would it would be difficult for the nation to approve. But if it was a package that strung water across the chapters, you'd probably have a much better chance, which is probably where you're going.
So,
Yes.
right. I just had to make that clear. For cost, the annual operation and maintenance O&M, so the $2.4 million estimated construction cost for a project of this type is $192 million for the 20-year payment period. So 2,000 to 3,000 acre-feet per year, roughly where it's at, but it's probably leaning more towards the high side, probably even over 2,000 acre-feet per year.
Let me just chime in here that Zach kind of organized this by those table headings, and this was just what was in the feasibility study, which is in the appraisal level study, which is a 20-year repayment versus a 30-year repayment on, but we thought it would be helpful at least to put it in some context.
No worries. Thank you for that. So there's these always alternatives here, but alternative number 4 again is what we're looking at. So that's why I have this red box here. So you can see all the costs listed there, O&M and construction. As far as the benefits go, how much money are you saving? Essentially, they looked at just the transportation costs for water hauling. So $94.9 million is what would be saved in transportation costs. However, if you were to subtract that from the cost of the project, you're still looking at, well, we need some more benefits here. There's a net loss of benefits by $150 million. So we need to find other options of how that would benefit economically. Cost and ability to pay. So this slide here is a little confusing. That's why I brought some notes here just to clarify what this is actually saying. There's two different abilities to pay that they were factoring in here. The EPA has this threshold of 2.5% water costs of a median annual household income. In other words, the median annual household income in the Navajo Reservation is roughly about $26,747. 2.5% of that is $669, which would not be feasible to finance this proposed project. That's why this estimated ATP is $3.2 million, answer number 4. This row here, the average annual project cost share, is $8.9 million. It comes from the 25% cost of the project that the project sponsor, whoever that may be, would pay. It would be 100% of the operation, maintenance, and replacement costs. Estimated annual water charges. So, with your estimated ability to pay from local costs, this is not going to be able to cover the cost of the project. And so this would not be economically feasible. However, if you were to take what the people currently pay for water, which is $131 per 1,000 gallons, or $1,894 per chapter, multiply that by the number of households for all 14 chapters, which comes to this $9.1 million to pay for water. In that case, you are able to financially pay for the project. So what it's saying is the difference between how much you pay for water, according to what the EPA standards are and what people actually pay now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Chuck's looking at me like...
No, I got it. It's
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They don't have much, the tribe themselves don't have a lot of ability to.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So local benefits, again, they've got these transportation costs that break down containers, water purchasing, opportunity cost of time. So you're saving the average household about $1,800 per year with the project of this. And you're also reducing adverse impacts, riparian habitats with the Lulu Aquifer and the Lower Greasewood chapter, and saving people the trip to get the water in the first place. Regulatory and legal issues. The Navajo Tribal Utility Authority is still iffy about whether or not they even want to treat the brackish water supply, compatibility with Indian Health Service sanitary deficiency. They want to obviously go after a water supply that is better quality. So that's why the brackish water supply is kind of put on the back burner. It's not the highest priority, let me put it that way. Alternative project is the product of 10 years of investigation between local chapters, water managers, but yet, even despite that amount of time, there's still a lack of consensus regarding all the assumptions being made in the appraisal study. So all that stuff has to be cleared out in the feasibility stage. I don't know, John, are you still on the phone line?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Do you know, have you talked to the folks over there and figured out if the feasibility stage is something that might be considered or no?
It would definitely be considered. We haven't had our alternative, or the meeting I was telling you about with the folks that are closer to that than I am. But, you know, the basic upshot of it is, I think any of you worked with reclamation feasibility studies, is we need specific authorization to do these feasibility studies. And we don't have that up there right now.
Okay, got it.
So, I can fill you in, Zach, when we have that meeting, like I said, and kind of see get a sense of where this office thinks we're going. which I don't have right at the moment.
Oh, no worries. Thank you, sir. Sorry for putting you on the spot there.
Yeah, no problem.
John Rasmussen from the Bureau of Reclamation. He's been helping me out a lot with this. And just for my last portion of the regulatory legal issues, just wanted to throw out there a letter we happened upon from John McCain, who encouraged the Navajo Nation to go through this U.S. Institute for Environmental Conflict Resolutions to settle all of the low-carbon river settlements. And just wanted to point out that we're not very close yet to getting all those results. I can say that. Any other questions?
But I think the point you raised at the end is something to probably keep in mind as we think about this, which is any water resource development in cooperation with the Navajo Nation in Arizona is likely to trigger a discussion about packaging whatever that activity is within the broader desire for a comprehensive settlement with the nation. So even if this were a $10 brackish groundwater project that benefited all the chapters and solved loop water supply challenges, people would still probably advocate to wrap it into that bigger bow. I would think the department would push for that.
Well, I think it was interesting to me when we were digging to actually find the appraisal level study, because I think all of our discussions about this as a possible brackish groundwater source was always in the context of a tribal settlement.
Yeah.
And this study shows that even absent a tribal settlement, they're at least moving forward in evaluating. Now, only one alternative has the brackish groundwater side of it. So I thought it was interesting for two because it costed something up there that we knew nothing about, but that they recognized the need themselves and at least took that step. That's why I was curious and had Zach reach out to John to see if they had tried to move it forward to feasibility, because that requires congressional approval, and that's a significant step. So I believe that the nation recognizes the slow-movingness of a settlement discussion and are possibly looking at solving some of their issues on their own. I think it's, the message that appraisal level report sent to me. But the letter, so just that was one of the things that Bob asked us to look inquire about was the status of any settlement discussions. And so a year ago, June, there was a meeting of the tribes and the powers that be at ADWR, and there was a discussion about continuing settlement discussions, and then nothing. And then that letter went out to say, hey, there's this mediation opportunity. Do you want to use it? And the reply to that was nothing. So I think that probably indicates where the status of that settlement could be. I never know.
Are there any next steps with this? I mean, there's such a need, and it just is disheartening to see, so many people traveling and filling up barrels of water. Always has been. I think everybody in Arizona, feels the same way. So that we know there's a need that exists, and are there any opportunities to do anything up there? And how would you even approach that conversation, and who would you even approach it with? And this is way outside of my world, so I don't know where you go from there. Crickets.
Well, I can share with you my unfortunate and lengthy history with Navajo discussions. I worked in the adjudication section back in the day, and then was a consultant who worked on discussions in the late 90s, so early 90s, late 90s, and then for CAP in 2000. When did that settlement blow up? 11.
11, because that's when they...
Yeah, so I worked with their, with the nation's water resource economist and did some work on the cost-benefit analysis that you guys reviewed, and the long and short of it is the focus on settlement gets in the way of pilots and practical on-the-ground opportunities, because there are alternatives to regional projects, sort of these the long skinny pipe problem, which is Navajo's problem. They have to run long pipe to 2 or 4 houses, and pipe. Anyway, it's an expensive proposition, but there are opportunities for one-off sort of ad hoc solutions for 4 and 5 houses. But to do a test to demonstrate that, you have to break through the how does this affect the settlement, and that's my frustration. I mean, so if we wanted to recommend, some sort of additional investigation, it would have to be with the discussion with the nation's water resource people, and at the staff level, they are encouraging and sort of and you get up to the point of spending money, and then people intercede because it might impact settlement discussions one way or another. Yeah. I wish I had a better view, but that's just the experience we've had.
And Chuck, you definitely know better than I. Does that hold true even if they're not having settlement discussions? Is it?
Yeah, so that's where it gets...
of settlement discussions to come? I mean...
Well, that's... Folks in the policy world on both the federal government, the nation, and the state side want to avoid diminishing the opportunity for an argument in a settlement. So if one party, and it could be the nation, it could be the United States, it could be the state, see a pilot project as weakening an argument, whether it's Federal Reserve right to groundwater or, some sort of groundwater surface water interaction argument, even if it's a good project that benefits people, it will get enmeshed in that. Mm-hmm. And whether it actually makes it to on-the-ground benefit, it hasn't yet. Yeah. It's unfortunate. Because we were proposing, a local solar distillation. They got lots of sun, and there's actually shallow brackish water that can be treated. And they're like, but it doesn't help my argument to get a big surface water project. But these people are hauling water.
I know. That's the tough thing.
It is.
See the pictures and it's all caught up in stuff that's beyond control.
But I would suggest that that's just practical experience and older cynicism. Yeah. It might be worth reaching out to the nation and asking them, no different than other local folks, and saying, what is your interest in potentially developing this resource?
Nothing hurts with the discussion, right?
Right.
I mean, if you don't at least try, you fail without trying.
Right. So, exactly. So
Jerry, I guess we could talk about how would we do that and,
sure.
and timing
we could research
of
that for the next meeting.
Okay.
Hey, Zach.
Are folks interested in talking to you?
Yes, sir.
It's just managing expectations.
This is John Rasmussen again over at Reclamation. Mitch Hawes here, before he left, we had done and I could get this for the report stuff for the group, but we did a small scale solar desal project up there that, as far as I know, it's still operating and making some water for stock ponds up on the reservation. That might be something that the group would be interested in seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
John, weren't people using that water too from that solar desalination?
I thought so.
Yeah. You guys might know more about it than I do, honestly. I thought there was something in my mind about there was something with DEQ on the water for human consumption. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll find that report and send it over to Zach, and then you will all know what we know.
Okay. Thanks, John.
There's also an NAU report that I stumbled on earlier a couple days, and it's from like this grad student. I don't even know how legitimate it is, really, but
it's legit.
It's legit.
Grad students can be smart people.
I was one of those.
They can. They have the ability.
But he basically did a study on wind farm over just south of Holbrook and Winslow, and using wind generated power to desalinate water near those cities. So, Martin and I were talking about what would it look like if there was a project off reservation.
Because there are high TDS areas that aren't, that are less than 2,000 feet. I mean, we're not talking about 3,000-foot deep wells off reservation that could supply water resources to Holbrook, Winslow, the Joseph City INA area.
There's some right next to a power plant.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, there are. And they're warm in the winter.
Yeah.
How salty is that water?
Well, some of the areas in that aquifer are like great. I mean, 100 ppm TDS, and others are 10,000.
Yeah.
And so it is very. Well, you just have to know the area.
Yeah.
Right? So as you move northeast, you will get into very high TDS water, and when you move southwest, you have a great well field.
And your blowdown water?
So our waste stream on that, where we said that, we have a wash up in that area, I believe, that we discharge to.
Okay.
I've been back to Palo Verde, now I forget all the other power plants.
Does it discharge into the LCR eventually as surface water?
I don't think so.
No, that would be no-go.
That would be. Oh, we have ponds.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Street, big ash ponds. So we use the blowdown water to slurry the ash over to the pond.
All right.
Yes. It's like, it's all coming back to me now. Yeah. Very low cycles of concentration. 7 to 10.
Okay.
Well, that's low to me.
Yeah. Well, that water can't be that bad.
No, it's not.
But is that a resource?
That water? Well, currently we plan on discontinuing generating electricity by coal from that plant in 2025.
Okay.
So then we won't be pumping. We have decreased our pumping from 16 to 17,000 acre feet a year to 10 to 12.
Wow.
Currently.
And if you probably go combined cycle or something?
I don't know if we would do.
Yeah.
Gas is not readily available on that piece of property.
Okay. All right.
But I wouldn't say never to anything.
Okay. Understood.
Any other questions about this? Comments? All right. Well, those were two very good presentations. Thanks, guys, for putting that information together. That was both of them. I know yours was write the check to get the report, so the level of effort was different. Yours was actually physical work to get done, but CH, I know, had some effort into it, so thank you for putting that information together for the committee. So we did talk about for the next meeting more information on this and how we would proceed forward or not. And Jerry, you'll know much more about that with Tom and Clint and powers to be than we would. And if there, John, if you can get that report to Zach, and we can at least look at what has been done up in that area and how that was accomplished, that would be interesting at least.
Yep, will do. Thanks.
So for the next meeting, are there any, throw it out for ideas first?
John and I are still talking about whether or not to discuss the results of the West Salt River Valley model based on that DOR is contracted out for. We could potentially talk about that if he's comfortable with it at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think on that, let's just. I'm not positive that we're going to have something. When is the next meeting?
We don't know.
Well, we haven't set a date yet, John. So when will you have the information?
Yeah.
It'll be a negotiation.
Well, I wish I had it yesterday, to be honest with you. Yeah, we're working out a few details on that, as you might have known. I mean, I know last time I thought we'd have it by now. We found a few things we just need to have fixed. I guess I can work with Zach and just kind of keep in touch as we're moving forward on this. I guess I'm going to be careful not to guarantee anything like I was kind of doing last time, because all good plans.
Undercommit, overproduce.
Yeah, right. I mean, I would certainly be willing to talk about and provide an update. It just might not be super satisfactory if it's real similar to what we did before, but I could throw up some maps and things like that if that would help. I'm just not sure that there's going to be anything that's real conclusion-like at this point.
Was January or February? Because that's pretty much when we would probably plan the next meeting.
Yeah, that seems like a much more doable time frame.
And we'll be ready.
Yeah, I would think we'd have these issues resolved by then.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I would target like the end of January.
End of January? Yeah. Okay. And then the item 2 was Mark Holmes' introduction. I remember he was going to do that in this meeting, but we got filled up pretty fast.
And what was Mark going to present on?
It was on his West Valley Water Association.
Oh. Barb, can you check into that and see?
Do you know what his topic was, or?
It's just introducing
the new.
I think the group,
the
group, and kind of what their plans were. Yeah.
And he's expressed to us that there's a lot of interest, especially with those members on desalination issues. So I think he kind of want to introduce the group of it and what it could become, kind of thing, is what I heard.
And if if Mark and you guys can kind of work together on level of interest in Avondale, on the West Valley cities and what you guys are kind of looking at long term, it would be interesting to me, and how putting something there could assist the West Valley cities. So yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
That's a full agenda.
I think that will do it.
So,
Yes, sir.
So if John has some helpful information, could we talk about, the waterlogged area exemptions, and because that December 2019 deadline for extending the exemptions, it's coming, and the Bureau of Reclamation model could help speed that up.
I want to talk about all of that stuff, Ron. Put everything out there. I mean, we're not going to try to hold pieces of or questions back. So if we have something that we need to put on the table that needs to be answered or resolved, not saying we can resolve it or answer the question in this group, but we got to know what the hurdles are to get across, or else we lose. So that'd be great.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other comments, questions? Very good meeting. Interesting stuff. Thanks for coming. Have a good week.
All right.